According to a report from the Korean Statistical Office, South Korea's total fertility rate in 2021 dropped to 0.81, the lowest since relevant statistics have been recorded, reaching the lowest level globally. It is the only country with a total fertility rate below 1. The total fertility rate refers to the average number of children born to a couple of childbearing age. Internationally, a total fertility rate of 2.1 is generally considered the replacement level for a relatively healthy population, meaning that, taking into account mortality risks, an average couple needs to have around 2 children to maintain a stable population size across generations. Once the total fertility rate falls below this number, it inevitably leads to population decline. When the total fertility rate drops below 1.5, it falls into the low fertility trap. In fact, South Korea has long been experiencing the phenomenon of low fertility. A United Nations statistical report in 2021 showed that South Korea's total fertility rate had been ranked last globally for 2 consecutive years. As early as 15 years ago, David Coleman, a demographer from the University of Oxford, predicted that if South Korea's fertility rate continued to deteriorate, it could become the first country to disappear from the Earth due to population issues. Historically, Koreans were known for having high fertility rates. In the 1960s, the fertility rate in South Korea reached as high as 6.0. Faced with the high fertility rate, South Korea implemented a family planning policy in the 1960s, advocating for having an appropriate number of children and raising them well. In the 1970s, the policy shifted to 2 children, regardless of gender, are enough, and the important thing is to educate them well. During this period, investments in family planning were increased. By 1983, South Korea's population had reached replacement level, and the fertility rate dropped from 6.0 in the 1960s to 2.8. To prevent a rebound in fertility, South Korea vigorously promoted the benefits of having 1 child, with the policy slogan being, "2 children are too many, 1 child is full of happiness and love." By 1990, South Korea's total fertility rate had dropped to 1.6. From then on, the country gradually reduced the budget for family planning and shifted the focus of the family planning department's work to maternal and child health. In 1996, South Korea abolished population control policies, but the fertility rate continued to decline. In 2005, the fertility rate in South Korea dropped to 1.08, and the government began implementing pro-natal policies. However, this issue has not been resolved. Why is South Korea unable to restore its fertility rate to previous levels? The most obvious reason is the high economic burden and cost of living for young people in South Korea. The Korea Times reported that employment, housing, and education are the 3 major sources of pressure for young Koreans, and they are also the hidden hands that keep them away from dating, marriage, and childbirth. According to a report by Time Finance in December 2021, the price of a house in a suburban new town outside Seoul, about 30 kilometers away, is 150 million Korean won, which is approximately $100,000, and an ordinary Korean would need to save for 80 years without spending anything to afford a house in Seoul. According to a survey released by the Korean Statistical Office, more than half of the unmarried population aged 39 in South Korea still live with their parents and rely on their support. Additionally, the youth unemployment rate in South Korean society has been increasing in recent years. More and more young Koreans are trapped by work and housing, making having children an almost impossible event. The South Korean government generally believes that the low birth rate is a money issue related to the cost of living and raising children. At the national policy level, the government has been investing heavily in cash subsidies. Over the past 16 years, the South Korean government has invested over 28 trillion Korean won, which is approximately $20 billion in government budgets to address the low birth rate issue. But the results have been minimal. Behind all this, deeply internalized gender discrimination in Korean society is also one of the important factors contributing to the low birth rate. In 2021, senior researchers from the Peterson Institute for International Economics and the German Marshall Fund, Kilgore, pointed out that the fundamental cause of Korea's low birth rate crisis is the gender discriminatory social structure. In recent years, the movie Miss Granny sparked a phenomenal discussion about the plight of women in Korea. Kim Ji-young, a name commonly found among Korean women in the 1980s, followed the typical path of Korean women's lives, growing up without being expected to achieve much. However, When she entered the workforce as a young adult, she faced increasing gender-related challenges. As an unmarried and childless female employee, she was relegated to the margins of the workplace, only able to do menial tasks. Gender discrimination in Korean reality is even more severe. According to CNN, many young Korean women are asked questions like, "When will you get married? When will you have children?" during job interviews. At the same time, women earn only 66% of men's wages for the same work and education level. According to OECD data, many Korean women leave the workforce around the age of 25 due to childbirth and family reasons. This leads many women to choose not to be confined by family responsibilities, and instead focus on better career development, resulting in a decision to not have children, get married, or even date. In reality, Korean women often experience a career hiatus of up to 8.4 years after giving birth. Even if they return to work later, more than half of women can only find temporary and dispatch jobs. It seems that from the moment they have a child, Korean women are left with only the identity of mother. Today, feminist ideas and the women's rights movement are awakening Korean women. With higher levels of education, women can achieve economic independence. In the process of social modernization, more women prioritize self-fulfillment over procreation, challenging Korea's deeply rooted patriarchal system. In the late 1990s, the Asian financial crisis erupted, causing many Korean men to lose their jobs. The long-standing dominance of men was challenged, while more educated Korean women stepped out of their homes and participated in the economy. Men had to compete for jobs, disrupting the delicate balance between men and women in Korean society, and leading to increasing tension in gender relations. In 2001, the Constitutional Court of Korea revoked the provision that had been in effect since 1961, which granted a maximum of 5% bonus points to male veterans in civil service exams and corporate interviews. This move triggered panic among many men and a disdain for the feminist movement. In 2005, the Constitutional Court of Korea abolished the provisions in the Civil Code and the Household Head Law that only allowed men to be the head of the household. In addition, Korea began implementing menstrual leave for women. These changes sparked a surge of anti-feminist sentiment in Korean society. Most Korean men oppose feminism and see themselves as victims of the women's movement. They express a large amount of discriminatory and insulting remarks against women in online spaces. This, in turn, stimulates some extreme feminist organizations in Korea to develop in an extreme direction, delighting in insulting and mocking men. Some extreme feminists even directly proclaim slogans like, "Men should not be responsible for childbirth." The confrontation between the two sides has intensified the negative attitude towards marriage and childbirth in Korean society. In 2020, the Nth Room incident shocked the world when it was exposed that individuals illegally filmed and distributed sexual videos of women, including minors, for payment in online chat rooms. According to Korean media, at least 74 women, including 16 minors, were victims of the Nth Room incident, with the youngest victim being only 11 years old. The criminal suspect, Cho Joo-bin, revealed that among the victims were well-known actresses and female singers from girl groups. This criminal activity lasted for 6 months and involved the participation of 260,000 people in South Korea, causing a significant public outcry. These successive incidents have further eroded trust between genders and deepened the divide. Additionally, the fear of domestic violence is also a significant factor preventing women from entering into marriage. However, in the eyes of Korean men with extreme anti-feminist sentiment, everything is blamed on women. Regarding the Nth Room incident, a Korean internet user commented, "I didn't commit a crime. I simply paid to watch adult content. Is that wrong?" Instead of punishing the participants of the Nth Room, the promiscuous women who uploaded their own videos should be punished. If they didn't upload the videos, there wouldn't be 260,000 victims. Their fault is greater. This atmosphere of tearing each other apart between men and women further instills fear in women, damages their collective sense of security, and undermines their willingness to marry and have children. It can be said that the population challenge facing South Korea is closely related to the pervasive gender opposition in society. Today, South Korea has become one of the countries with the highest level of female education in the world. Women refuse to bear the full burden of household chores and child-rearing. They are increasingly stepping out of the private sphere and asserting more reproductive rights. However, the awakening of women and the improvement of their education level are not factors contributing to the declining birth rate. The root cause in South Korea and other East Asian countries lies in the conflict between limited per capita resources and high expectations and investments in children. Both men and women are constrained by social norms and traditional marriage and family norms, leading women to be more cautious in their choices regarding marriage and childbirth. Therefore, the way out of the low birth rate trap cannot be solved solely by offering financial incentives for having children. It is more important to address how the social and cultural atmosphere responds to changing gender norms and the repositioning of gender roles, leading to corresponding changes. In reality, low birth rates are a common problem for many countries worldwide, not just in developed Western countries. Countries like Russia and China also face similar issues. While each country has its own reasons, factors such as modernization, the pressures of life, and women's awakening contribute to making childbirth a more systematic and costly decision.